What is going on, Locks Mob, and welcome back to the Locks DFS NHL Breakdown. I am your host, Narang, and I'll be breaking down this 12-game main slate on DraftKings, FanDuel, and PrizePicks for Tuesday, February 12th. Before I get into that, as always, a quick recap on yesterday. Yesterday went really well. The cheat sheet was strong. I know some members cashed on DK. I know some members did miss. Because there was like that San Jose explosion at the end with Evander Kane, et cetera, where he was fairly chalky. So I think some members did miss on DraftKings, but I think a lot of members cashed, and FanDuel was strong as ever. The team was crazy with Couture, Hurdle. We had that whole San Jose onslaught on FanDuel. We had the Bukestad goal. We had the Ovechkin massive game. So we got the Copley win. So really, really awesome night on FanDuel and on both sides. So with that being said, let's jump into this main slate. It's a massive 12-game slate as always. So like last video, I talked about every team and every player, or players on every team and every line. I'm not going to be doing that for this slate. Obviously, it's just too much. So I'm going to talk about a few of my favorite plays at each position, at each price point, as always, and we'll go from there. So starting at center. Obviously a bunch of options you can choose from up here, but for me, by far and away, my top option is Patrice Bergeron. Stepping into the best matchup you could possibly ask for against Chicago, which is the worst team in the league, expected goals against per 60-wise. Just awful 5v5 defense, awful penalty kill. Just a team that anytime they're on the slate, you want to target the team they're playing, as well as themselves a little bit because they do have some offensive prowess, but not in this matchup versus Boston. So the news out of Boston, well, first I'll say that they opened up at a 3.6 team total. This whole game opened up at a 6, and it's quickly been bet up to 6.5. I think that should be where it should have opened up at, just because if Boston's going to score quite a few goals today, and I expect Chicago to probably pot a couple of their own. So, but the big news out of Boston is that David Pastrnak went out to like some team function with some players, and walking back to his car, he fell. Or walking back to transportation, he fell and hurt his thumb. So he's out for 2 weeks. And essentially what that does to the Boston first line, because Pastrnak had already been moved to the second line, and it was Marchand, Bergeron, and Heinen. But in my opinion, that just puts increased emphasis on this first line. Boston becomes a very heavy one-line team without Pastrnak on that second line. I think we might see increased minutes from these top guys. As well as just increased production because of an increased emphasis on how much production they have to have. So really like Patrice Bergeron, really like both his line mates as well, who I will talk about in the winger section. But top option to pay up for at center is Patrice Bergeron for me. If we scroll down a little bit farther, though, I can't leave the center position without talking about William Karlsson. I don't know why they continue to give him away for free. I mean, he's surpassed value in most of these games. I mean, you'll even take a 1.5 at this price point. It's not the worst when he's priced at 4.8K. And nothing's really changed. I mean, in fact, it's changed for the better. Instead of having this rotating third wing being like Valentin Zykov or Brandon Peary, is back to being Riley Smith. This was their first line last year for almost the entire year, and it was one of the most dominant lines in hockey. It's back together. It correlates extremely well at 5v5, obviously, and it correlates perfectly on the first-team power play as well, if you want to stack them up. William Karlsson, not a guy that's going to shoot the puck a ton, although he has had multiple shots in 5 of his past 6 games. But he's still not got the highest iCorsi 4 per 60 on the team or on that line, so he's not going to shoot the puck a ton. He's a little assist-dependent, but for 4.8K, you're more than willing to take that risk. I think you kind of lock him in to start. Moving on to winger, I was going to spend some time talking about Brad Marchand. I feel like I've talked about Boston 1 enough, but the big news here is Brad Marchand is incredibly underpriced on DraftKings. I mean, being the 10th or 11th or whatever highest price winger in this matchup makes absolutely no sense. As you can see on FanDuel, he's priced up much more reasonably as the 4th highest winger. And on that same note, Nikita Kucherov at 6.9K on DraftKings is just way too cheap because, as you can see on FanDuel, he's priced a little more accurately. He's 8.6K. He's the 3rd highest winger. Whereas on DraftKings, he's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. The 10th highest winger. The 12th if you include Hall and Pastrnak, who are out. So just insanely good value on those guys. But I'm not going to talk about them because you already know enough about them. The guy I really want to talk about in the sort of upper price range is Tarasenko. I'm a huge fan of this St. Louis one line. They're going up against New Jersey, a team that's in the bottom 5 in hard danger chances against over the past 5 games. They've just been a mess defensively without Taylor Hall, and just in general all year is a team you really want to target, especially when they're on the road. St. Louis, a team that's been rolling. They've won, I think, 7 or something straight games. Their first line is clicking as ever. I clicked on Tampa Bay by accident. St. Louis, this first line of Ryan O'Reilly, Vladimir Tarasenko, and Braden Shen is as dominant as it comes and is an amazing matchup, correlates perfectly at 5v5 and on the first team power play. I think you'd be crazy not to get some exposure to St. Louis 1. Ryan O'Reilly is a little bit priced up over here on DraftKings. He's 7.1K. I certainly think you can still pay that for him, but Vladimir Tarasenko at 6.7K is just way too cheap. This guy, for the past 3 years, has been one of the highest iCourse per 60s in the league. Sort of operated as a mini Ovechkin in his own right. Now, I mean, there was a point where it was neck and neck between these two. He kind of took a back seat, but it looks like he's breaking out of whatever sort of slump he was in, extended slump he was in. I mean, 8 shots on goal last game versus Nashville. Super tough matchup on the road. Scored a hat trick. Game before that versus Nashville again at home. 4 shots on goal. Scored another goal. So love Tarasenko tonight, and I think he's a great value on DraftKings. Scrolling down though a little bit, the guy I wanted to talk about in this lower price range. Where did he go? I think I might have gone too far. There was a couple guys. Okay, I see one. Jake DeBrusk is one. Actually, let me scratch Jake DeBrusk and let me replace him with Danton Heinen. I know I didn't talk enough about sort of that third winger on Boston one. I know I said Pasternak got moved down, but he's been replaced with Danton Heinen for the past couple games. Danton's been on the second team power play, so not on the first team power play, although there is a spot that opens up here. And Heinen did get first team power play run a little bit last year, if I can recall correctly. And I believe he did. But in this situation, I would expect it to be David Krejci who took over this first team power play role. But it certainly could be Danton Heinen or could be Charlie McAvoy. So keep an eye out for this. Whoever gets that first team power play boost, obviously, that's a massive boost because if Boston gets power plays, there's a good chance that they score before the second team power play even gets a chance to come on. So Danton Heinen at 3.9, an awesome play. The reason I was going to talk about Jake DeBrusk is just because he is on that first team power play. So if you want more power play exposure, you can definitely go with Jake DeBrusk. But I think Danton Heinen is probably the better play for not much more. And then the last guy I wanted to talk about here is Riley Smith at 4.3K. I'm not going to spend too much time talking about him since I did say essentially the same thing for William Karlsson. But Riley Smith, one of the higher iCourse per 60 players on Vegas, shoots the puck a fair amount at home, dominant matchup, first team power play. Great spot versus Arizona, 4.3K. I think he's an awesome play as well as a value winger. Moving on to defense, I mean, at the top price range, there's a bunch of places you could go. You could go with Torrey Krug, get more exposure to that Boston 1 power play. You could go with a guy like Roman Josi, even though that Nashville defensive corps is fully healthy. You can still go with a guy like Roman Josi who plays monster minutes and puts up monster stats, really high iCourse per 60. But for me, I know I took a long way to get here. I can't help but scroll down into this mid 4K range and the value it presents. It's really crazy on a slate like this. And I think on a slate like this without a clear-cut option to pay up for, i.e. Brent Burns, I think it's a good time to sort of come in this mid-range. I think Zach Werenski at 4.2K is probably the lock of the slate on DraftKings. I mean, I don't know why he's priced that cheap. He's been skating 23 to 25 minutes a game. Back on this first-team power play, an absolutely lethal power play to be on with Panarin, Atkinson, Pierre-Luc Dubois, and Nick Foligno. And Zach Werenski, he's the quarterback of this power play. He's got a fairly high iCourse per 60 for a defenseman. Has shot the puck, has been a fantasy-friendly guy in the past. Sort of on a slow year, but has shot the puck a lot this year. So I think he's in an absolutely awesome spot to produce. And it doesn't help that Columbus has one of the higher team totals on the slate. Open at 3.5, 39% of the bets on their spread, and they've jumped from -130 to -143. Good for a 3.6 team total. That could even climb a little higher if they get some more sharp money on them, which I anticipate they might, versus a Capitals team on a back-to-back going to Columbus. So as we know, Washington, third worst in the league, expected goals against per 60. So I do expect Columbus to score a few goals here, and I think Werenski is more than likely to be involved in a few of them. So really like him. And then the last thing I want to talk about on defense is Shea Theodore at 4.5K. Usually I talk about Colin Miller every time around now in these videos, but in this case, Colin Miller has been bumped down to the second team power play, and Shea Theodore is up on power play 1. So for that reason, I mean, Shea Theodore, he does shoot the puck slightly more than Colin Miller. I believe Colin Miller's iCourse 4 per 60 is around 11.6, and Shea Theodore's is about 13.3. So you are getting a guy who shoots the puck slightly more. He is slightly more expensive, but Shea Theodore, even when he was in Anaheim, was a guy that me and this group chat that I used to be in for hockey before I started all this, we would talk about how we were just waiting for Shea Theodore to break out, be the stud that we know he can be. So he kind of did it last year, and now I think he gets that another opportunity to do that here on a lethal Vegas power play 1. So as far as goalie goes, obviously look at your team, correlate your goalie with your team so that if your team does well, your goalie gets the win. And that's all I can really say about that. I like Binnington versus New Jersey. I think he's a fair price on both sides, so he's not a bad play. But yeah, y'all got that one. If you want to go with Anders Nielsen, obviously the goalie versus Carolina is always the best GPP goalie on the slate because of how much Carolina shoots the puck. He's in play, so up to you. Take your pick. But as always, thank you guys so much for watching this video. It means so much that you guys keep coming back and checking it out. If you haven't already, please do like, comment, and subscribe. You'll be entered into winning a free giveaway or a free season pass of your choice, whether that be NBA, NFL, NHL, sports betting, whatever you want, up to you. So like, comment, and subscribe to be entered into winning that. I hope you guys win a ton of money tonight, and I will see you tomorrow. Peace.